But this is the time where I want to hear from you. I want to provide the most value. You heard my rhetoric.
All by myself.
So first things first, and please be honest with me because it does not matter to me at all. Who heard of me before I took this class? So, wow, that hurts. Not at all, but that just gives me context for what I want to talk a little bit about today and the reason that Dr. Campbell has me in here. First of all, thank you, Dr. Campbell. I met Dr. Campbell through taking, actually I met you at one of Lane's camps. So
Yes.
one of Lane Norton's camps, and Lauren Conlon, you guys are familiar with her. She's like my business partner friend, and she was actually going to the grad program here. So that's how I found out about this. That's why I'm in these classes, because as you'll learn, I'm approaching education from a different direction than you guys are. I've already done all my education. Now I'm going back to learn more about what you guys are. So what you guys are doing is very exciting to me. So that answers that. So we'll go ahead and get started. So let's talk a little bit about my story. I just want to keep it brief. I just want to give you guys a little bit of context about who I am, why you should listen to me, why you should leave, why you should tell me to be quiet. Basically, my story is I grew up playing sports. I was addicted to sports: baseball, basketball, football, volleyball. I grew up on Clearwater Beach. So anything that was outside growing up, I did it. But that came with I was very thin. I graduated high school, don't laugh, at 6'3", 160 pounds. But I did get a baseball scholarship. So I was good at sports, I was athletic. I was never overly concerned about the thin aspect. I had a lot of funny nicknames growing up, like the human coat hanger. But those kind of things always played with me. And so I think that has kind of translated into this obsession with, always being interested in resistance training and putting on muscle and, reading bodybuilding magazines and learning about Arnold. So that's kind of the avenue that I take. And a lot of people, I'm going to show you a picture of me when I was young, and you're going to laugh because a lot of people think, I've put on some muscle over my 23 years of training. Yes, I've probably been training more than some of you guys have been alive. But it's been a long journey, and I've always been drug-free. And how it became a career was literally just through sheer force of nature. I'm going to get more into that. This is kind of what we're going to go through step by step. And then we're going to get into where I'm going to add some value to you guys, talking about how I built my brand, how I've done that process. And online coaching is just part of what I do. I'm a coach. So if anyone is interested in being a coach, I think it's going to be very valuable for you. And then the most important part, the part that I think is going to add the most value to you guys, is questions. You guys were nice enough to write things down at the beginning of class a couple weeks ago and say, this is stuff that we're interested in, curious about. And there was definitely a theme there. So I put most of the questions on the question and answer, but if anything else comes up, I would love to answer them. I want to add value to you guys. I want to provide something that you can get out of this. That would make me feel the best. So let's go ahead and start a little bit about my story. High school, here I am. Senior in high school, look at the 90s clothes, right? Fantastic. Basically, like I said, I was a very athletic kid. I could dunk a basketball, I can throw a baseball 90 miles an hour. I'm very into sports. All I care about is sports. And then someone in 10th grade starts lifting weights, one of my friends, and I immediately noticed like the physique changes. And from then I started taking the weightlifting classes in high school, and I started buying the muscle magazines. This is pre-internet. This is like 1990. This is pre-internet. There's not even any internet at this point. So it's basically just whatever I can learn from magazines, books, the people at the gym. But sports was always at the forefront for me. So it was definitely like a 2 or 3 day a week in the gym. I didn't have money to buy a membership at Gold's Gym at this time. So my dad got me a weight set for the house, like an Olympic weight set. So that was kind of my introduction the first couple of years. Then I go through college. I get done playing baseball, and you guys are all going to find this out. A lot of your time is consumed by school and your activities, and when all that ends, you're going to have to find out what your passions are that you're going to fill that time with. And for me, I immediately went to the gym. I got a job working at Chili's, which was great because I got to eat, and I got a membership at Gold's, and I literally spent the next probably year and a half, 2 years doing nothing but working and lifting weights. And it was a wonderful period of time. I had no stress. I just lifted a lot of weights, made a ton of progress. Well, all that progress stopped because I didn't have a lot of education. I was following programs that were in bodybuilding magazines written for people that were basically on steroids and doing 1,000 reps for shoulders. It doesn't really make a lot of progress for a 23-year-old guy that's just lifting weights and eating. And so I kind of stalled out, and I started to lose interest, and I started to get interested in other things like partying with my friends, girls, traveling. So those kind of things took over. And then I got a career. I got into the information technology world. I started studying to get my degrees in that. And that kind of training was always there. I was always in the gym 3, 4, 5 days a week. But some point when I got into my career and I had some free time, I started looking on the internet. And this is when bodybuilding.com came out. And this is where I found out about bodybuilding forums. So bodybuilding forums were, years ago, were the place, kind of like message groups on Facebook now would be. Like you go into these groups and you kind of got this concentration of a population. It was fantastic. I met some of the biggest names in the fitness industry in that forum, bodybuilding.com contest prep section. I actually hired my first coach and did my first competition. This is my first competition. These are two of my best friends. They were both groomsmen in my wedding, so we're still very close. And this just, I find this picture funny because even though we don't share like the super same passions, they took the piss out of me. They thought it was hilarious that, you know, I was with fake Tanner in front of a bodybuilding show, so we took this picture. And they're my boys. Even though we don't do the same things, they supported me completely. And this was me turning pro in 2009. So I'm a pro natural bodybuilder. That's kind of how I got my start in the fitness industry. I built a little bit of reputation. Now, getting into coaching was something that it was forced upon me. I never intended to be a coach. I loved IT. I have a master's degree in business administration and technology management. My goal was to be like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, right? And make lots of money and go to work and wear fancy clothes. Somewhere along the way, when I was going home every day, all I would focus on was this bodybuilding competition, my diet, my training. And so my passion started to take over. My free time, every second that I spent, I was reading, learning more. And my coach at the time was Lane Norton. Who's heard of Lane Norton in here? A lot more than me. Man. Yeah, no. But Lane Norton at one point, and maybe still be, the #1 most well-known nutrition person in the world. Like without a doubt, everywhere I went, everyone was heard of Lane Norton. Well, he was getting at one point 50 to 60 client requests per day to work with him. Lane is a big believer in the morals and ethics in coaching because there's a lot of shitty coaches out there. There's a lot of people that do things the wrong way. So he kept egging me on, like, listen, you're good at this, you understand it, you ask the right questions, please help me out. I can't refer business to bad coaches. And so slowly over time, he convinced me to become a coach. And it was just through sheer force of will that I actually started working as a coach, okay? And that's the please help. It was basically like, please, Paul, you need to help me out and figure this out. And I thought, you know what, I'll just take on a couple clients, 1, 2 here, there. And it kind of snowballed from there. This was 2011, 12, 13, and it's probably when online coaching went from, I had to convince people that I could do my job on the internet to, please take my money, I want to work with you, right? That's literally the shift. Like you guys probably don't remember before the internet, but you had to teach everyone that things could be online. People didn't want to date online. 10 years ago, if you met somebody on an internet date, you were a freak, right? So it's the same thing with online coaching. Now, it's not weird at all to say, oh, I have an online coach. Oh, who's your coach? It's become the norm. But this was the time when it switched, when I was working with Lane. And then the leap of faith for me was, okay, I've committed 20 years of my life to this career, this IT career. What do I do when I start earning more with my hobby, right? That was the leap of faith that I had to take, and we'll get into that. All right. So the big shift for me was going from something that I focused my entire life on to now focusing on a hobby. And when I was in school, there wasn't a such thing as exercise science. Not that I'm aware of. Where I went to college in Georgia, I was studying communications because this was when the internet was taking off, and I saw the future as the internet. A lot of those skills transferred for me. You know, being able to stand here in front of you and speak, I had to take a lot of classes to be able to do that. Like this interaction would have been very awkward for me prior to getting my master's degree. Understanding business, understanding ethics, these kind of things transfer, but I didn't have the science background that you guys are going to have in exercise and strength and conditioning, and that's the piece that I'm missing now, right? Lane's impact. For everyone in here that knows Lane on the internet, you know, he's a very like angry, ranty kind of guy sometimes, but that's all out of passion. The guy is literally, he just wakes up, lifts weights, does the right thing. He wants to improve all things, nutrition, training. He wants to get rid of all the crap that's out there, provide good information, and let you guys make decisions. And sometimes that comes across as very angry. But for Lane, he is, without a doubt, one of the people that has completely changed nutrition and online coaching forever. And he's always going to be associated with that, right? So he's had a huge impact on me personally and on the industry as a whole. The salary or PayPal, that's literally the first month that I realized, like, so you guys are familiar with PayPal. I would send my clients an invoice, they would pay me. And in 1 month, I looked at my PayPal and it was more than my paycheck. And I thought, why am I going to work right now? Obviously, that doesn't always translate. You can't assume that that's going to be that way every month. But that was the first time in my life that I thought to myself, well, maybe I could be something different than a person that goes to work from 9 to 5. I could actually start my own business. And my wife was a huge reason for that. The big leap of faith came for me when my wife got a job promotion, and she was working for Chase, and she was, at this point, I'll give you guys numbers. I was making about $70,000 a year in IT, and she was making over 6 figures working for Chase. She got a job promotion, and she was going to be moving to get that promotion. So the leap of faith was basically me saying, I'll leave my job, do my coaching business full time, and we'll see what happens with that. And if it doesn't go well, I'll just get back another job in IT, because now I had all this experience and education. But that never happened. It actually got to the point where my wife left her work. So my wife is a full-time stay-at-home now. I have a 3-year-old son who's amazing, but that is a full-time job. She helps me with my business, and all of that was spurred because I was willing to leave my job, which was very difficult for me. I loved my job. I loved going to work. It wasn't like I was working in the salt mines. I liked going. And in fact, being in front of a computer all day as an IT person led me to have more time to be a good coach, because a lot of it is attentiveness and being on the internet at that time. Quick reply times were a big deal for a lot of people who were telling me their coaches would take a week or 3 days to answer their emails. So I think my leap of faith turned me into a better coach, because I have a huge fear of failure. And so I had always gotten a paycheck ever since I was like 15 or 16 years old. And so when you start working for yourself, there's this huge fear that goes along with it. But that fear kind of spurred a lot of things in my life that have gotten me to the point where I am now, speaking in front of you guys. So that's very cool. And being, like I said, a business owner, that's something, if you guys want to go out on your own, I highly recommend it. But for me, I was very pragmatic about it. I had a system in place. I was never going to go broke or miss a meal. I had savings, and my wife, this was a plan. It wasn't like I just said YOLO and I'm starting a business. So this is where I think you guys will probably get the most value out of me, because I don't think you guys are going to have the same story as me. I'm a lot older than you guys. I remember the time before the internet. It was very awkward for me to actually get on the internet. Lane was someone that had to push me. Lane was a very early adopter, because even he's like 36. So even for him, I remember when Facebook came out, and you guys are going to laugh, it was like, oh, that's the weird thing you go on. That's where all the kids are, right? So I don't know if you guys remember that. I was like MySpace. AOL Instant Messenger, that's how you met girls, right? So for me to adopt Instagram or Snapchat or any of these platforms, even YouTube, was very uncomfortable until I started to do it. And then I realized how much I enjoyed it. So visibility is the number one thing. I think you did a presentation on Greg O'Gallagher, and you talked about how he's a scam artist. But he's a very good scam artist, because he's figured out a way to get everyone's attention, right? So don't look at him and think, what an idiot. Look at him and think, okay, what's he doing right? So he obviously had cash flow from his parents to start this business, but what did he do? He spent it all on internet marketing. He spent it all on YouTube. He spent it all on Instagram. I don't really follow him that much, but I see his crap everywhere. Every time I click on a skip ad on YouTube, I'm just like, damn, this dude is spending money. I don't know how much those clicks cost, but obviously he's done something to get everyone's attention. So visibility is very important. The one thing I want to say is, when I say to write or not write, when I first started trying to be visible, the number one thing was writing articles. I would get I wrote for bodybuilding.com, I wrote for RX Muscle, but I hated it. I would get an assignment and they would say, oh yeah, we want to write an article on HIIT cardio. I would hate it. I would sit there and write that article and be like, oh, I hate doing this. But I had to do it for visibility. Don't do that, okay? There's going to be times in your life where you have to do things you don't want to do to get ahead. You have to do your job. But focus your energy on what you enjoy. I like standing in front of a camera and being on YouTube. I like making long form posts on Instagram. I hate writing articles for websites, okay? Even my own website, I don't write content for. So as you can see, like these videos are just in the last 30 days. I do a video almost every day now, and it took me a while to get there. I used to do one a week, and then I did 2 a week, and then I said to myself, all right, let's try 5 this week. Then I hired a videographer to follow me around whenever I travel. His name's Chad Nutter. So if I don't have the ability to put out a video daily, I bring someone with me. This has been my transition. That doesn't have to be your story, but find what you enjoy, find what you love. Right now, the #1 tool without doubt is Facebook. Facebook ads, Facebook targeted marketing. Look into that stuff if you're interested in building your brand, if you're interested in being a coach, because that is where it is at right now. Building a YouTube following is long and slow and grueling, but I feel the YouTube community is super loyal. Like, I don't have a huge YouTube following, but if I go somewhere, I get stopped at fitness conventions, not like real life, like fitness events. I get stopped and I don't have that big of a following, so I feel like they're very loyal. And Instagram for me is just a way to share information. I try to provide value in whatever I'm doing. I enjoy Instagram. But those are the two that I've gotten the most out of the Instagram stories. Who mentioned the Instagram stories earlier? Yeah. So I enjoy doing Instagram stories as much as I can. I try not to bore people. I try to actually put valuable stuff in there and not just take a picture of all my meals. Sometimes I do that. But I think the most important thing is you want to, whatever you guys are going to do, be the resource for your community, okay? So people know me as a coach for bodybuilding, for bikini, for powerlifting. So when I put out information, it's in that genre, okay? I focus on sharing information and things that I've learned over the last couple of years that I'm comfortable giving. You'll never hear me say always, never, I'm an expert. I simply give my opinion. So when you're doing things in that manner, you're gonna be much more successful. And focus on the group that, don't think there's such a thing as too small of a niche, right? Natural bodybuilding. If you told me I could make a living coaching natural bodybuilders, I would have thought you're insane. You can absolutely do that. So you can make a living coaching hockey players, right? I mean, to all of us in here today, we were like, hockey, that's a thing? Like, you know, like, we're not from Canada or from Russia, but obviously there's a huge market. It's a professional sport around the world. So don't think that something is too small, because even if it's small, even if it's CrossFit, and 5 years ago, CrossFit, what's that? And now look at it, it's a global phenomenon. Don't think that you can't start and grow with the community that you're involved in. I think that's a huge thing with me, is I was kind of accidentally brought up with bodybuilding and competitive. And 5 years ago, I don't know if you guys are familiar with IFBB bikini competitions. 5, 6 years ago, it didn't exist. Now I probably have hundreds of clients a year that come to me for bikini coaching. So you can't really see the future. You can't connect the dots forward. So just do what you're passionate about and see where that leads. So what is social media? The reason I want to bring up social media is because it's a term and it's a stigma, and we kind of attach our thoughts and emotions to that. And I've had to learn to remove myself from that. Meaning, I used to think Snapchat, oh, I can't go on there. That's where the kids send the dick pics. Right? Like, that's the and maybe they do. But because of that stigma, I just never downloaded it, never installed it. The second I got it and started working on it and started using it and telling people, oh, follow me, follow me. It's a community. It creates a community. So all social media it's different communities. Use the ones that you enjoy, okay? Don't be afraid to download them all and use them. I've tried to use Twitter. I don't like it. Too many people arguing for me. I've tried to use Snapchat. Oh, Stories came out. That's easier for me now, right? So for me, I've found the ones that I love, but if something new comes out, I'm even trying out Pinterest right now, because who's on Pinterest? Does anyone know, like, what's the huge demographic on Pinterest? Females, moms, right? Well, who buys a lot of stuff? Moms. Who wants to get in shape? Who's on there right now as far as fitness people? So there's potential there for something. But a lot of people would say, well, I don't want to go on Pinterest. It's not for fitness people. You've got to kind of figure things out. I'm also starting a podcast this month. Something that I didn't consume a lot of, but the more I consume of them, the more I enjoy. So Lauren Conlon and I are actually starting a podcast. So, you know, we're trying things out. And maybe we'll do it for a couple of weeks and months and we'll hate it. Maybe we'll love it. And maybe we'll be the next Tim Ferriss. Who knows? Like, it's all about putting yourself out there and finding what works for you. So don't think of social media as a stigma, as a thing. Use it, try it out, see what works for you. And again, these are all my opinions. You can all tell me I'm crazy. And then success. So Success for everybody in here is going to be something different. Success for me means providing for my family, getting excited every day, waking up. Success for you might mean you drive a Lamborghini. Success for you might mean you buy a house for your mom. It doesn't have to be defined by anything other than what makes you happy. But I promise you, if you're in charge of your own life, you're going to be a lot more excited than working for somebody else. Because if you work for somebody else, you're building their dream. If you work for yourself, you're going to be building your own dreams, right? So, and I can tell you that as someone that had a 40-hour-a-week job and was going to school, and I would come home and spend time on my passion, the nice thing about what I do now is I literally wake up every day excited to get on the computer. I go downstairs and I scarf my breakfast down and I get on there and I start working. Because there's just a momentum when you're excited about what you do versus when you I got to drive to work, got to sit here, wait for this client to come in. You can enjoy that, but it will never be to the level of if you're working for yourself and pushing yourself. So these are, first of all, let's talk about some of my clients. You guys ever heard of Jen Thompson?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome. So she's a client of mine, 13-time world champion powerlifter. For what you said earlier about girls not being stronger than guys, false. Jen Thompson. Do you know how much she benches? 132 pounds, bench 325. Raw with a pause. YouTube it. It's real. And then this is Ray Clark. He is a pro natural bodybuilder. He's actually a pro world champion. I actually worked with him prior to him turning pro, turned him pro, then we did a pro show, and then he won world championship. So he's one of my favorite clients because he's a genetic freak, and he is one of the people that when people say, what's possible natural, they want to question it. He competes at 6'1", 215 pounds natural on stage. He is enormous, jacked, and he should have been an NFL linebacker. He just didn't get drafted, and now he's a bodybuilder. But I mean, that's the kind of freak that he is. And then this is Emily Hayden. She's by far and away my most well-known client. Everybody heard of Emily Hayden? Oh, wow. Okay, so Emily Hayden is an IFBB bikini pro. She's got 250,000 Instagram followers. She does her own coaching business. She's very well-known. So I get a ton of, I don't want to say business, but I get a ton of attention from her just being involved with her. So one thing I wanted to say earlier on the slide, you might have noticed, it said, tell me who you walk with. The people you associate with, that's who they're going to associate you with. So make sure you choose wisely. It can be hard sometimes when it comes to money or comes to doing the right thing. I promise you, if you do the right thing all the time, you'll always be happy. I've turned down working with clients because we had moral and ethical differences, even though they had big followings. And I'm sure Dr. Campbell can confirm there's some people even in academia that do things for the wrong reasons, and coaching that do things for the wrong reasons. But if you do things for the right reasons, you're going to be successful. It might just take you a little while, but you will sleep better. So these are the questions that you guys kind of wrote down for me. And I'm not limiting you guys to these questions by any means, but this is the time where I want to hear from you. I want to provide the most value. You heard my rhetoric. It's just my story. But the one thing I have done is live life. I've done a lot of things. I've worked for companies. I've built my company. And so maybe I can provide some value to you, answers to you. And it doesn't have to be limited to today. If you guys want to email me, ask me questions. I feel just blessed to be in this class and a part of this group. Like, you guys are where I wish I was where you were 20 years ago. I wish I was like doing what you guys are doing now. And so I'm excited to be a part of everybody's journey. Somebody in my last class I hired as a full-time coach for me now. So like, I'm definitely going to be taking more classes, definitely going to be involved with Dr. Campbell for the next foreseeable future until we're both too old to care. But he and I share a passion. That's bodybuilding, muscle building, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to get Dr. Campbell coaching more, and there's just good stuff going on, and he's going to be involved. He's always asking me, how do you coach? How do you coach? So let's first of all, pricing. Does anyone remember who asked me about how I came up with my prices?
I've asked you that.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a scary thing, right? So you're starting a business and you're like, oh, I'm a coach. How much do you want to pay me, right? You want to kind of get a feeler out. You don't want to offer too low. And I'll give you my thoughts on how I came up with my prices. My first coach was Lane Norton. He sent me his first price sheet in 2008. When I first started coaching, I kind of mimicked those prices. His prices when I started coaching in 2012 had probably quadrupled, maybe even times 5. So his prices were off the charts. But he was Lane Norton, PhD, most well-known nutrition coach in the world. People were literally like on a waiting list for 6 months to work with him. I didn't have that luxury. People were like, who the hell are you? Why should I work with you? So I would get referrals from Lane, and I would just use his old price sheet. And based on the feedback that I got, I used my knowledge from business. If you price yourself too low, let me ask you guys this question. Who here's bought a car? Okay, let's say you go to the Mercedes lot. All the cars are $60,000, $80,000, right? And you see this beautiful Mercedes, and it's $6,000. What's the first thing you think? Exactly. So you've got to learn not to price yourself too low, because no one will respect that price. What if there's a $200,000 Mercedes? It's probably nice, but I ain't worried about that Mercedes. So you probably have to do a little bit of research. And for me, it's always been about what I'm comfortable with, because this is your time and effort and energy you're going to be exerting. So what I tell my clients is, sometimes they'll be like, oh, can we negotiate a new price for the next, yeah, whatever you want to pay, because the money is not what I consider important. What's important is the investment that they're making in themselves and me. Because I know when they pay me, that's them saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow through with working with you. There's nothing worse than someone signing up and paying you, and then you don't hear from them for weeks, months, and you're like, hey, what's going on? And you just don't know what happened to them. So I have a process where I make sure now that the people that work with me they're invested, because I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste their time. So pricing, if you haven't worked with a coach or worked in your field with someone, I would suggest doing that. Like the best thing for me was working with Lane, right? And then becoming friends with like Dr. Joe Klemzeski and speaking to other people in the industry that were doing things. And heck, I've even emailed other coaches with an alias and said, hey, I'm interested in working with you, just to get pricing. And a lot of people have it on their website directly. I don't do that because I like to send different price sheets to different people depending on, kind of mood I'm in and stuff. Someone asked me, what do you need to start a business? This is actually, the cost of entry for business now is zero. You can use your Yahoo, you can use your Gmail, you can develop your own website. You might have to buy a domain name for $3.99 from GoDaddy, whatever it is. But there's literally zero cost to entry nowadays. It's just how fancy you want to make it, right? So I think early on for me, when my wife was like, listen, you're starting a business, we need to do this the right way. We went on like sunshinebiz.org and bought my business name, and then I haggled with a guy about prophysique.com, and then so it was like I had these pieces building, but it wasn't like I plunked down $100,000 and said, here's my business model. No, it was literally like, as I made a little money, I would put a little money into the business. So I was very I'll always say this word pragmatic, because I'll never be a billionaire just because I don't have that risk taker mentality, right? But I'm always plugging along forward, and so I kind of reinvest in myself along the way. Like this camera. So basically when I get to 10,000 YouTube subscribers, I'm going to do something nice for my YouTube channel. So it made sense, right? Like things that come along, this was actually a gift, but things that come along, I give myself goals and things like that to do the next thing. So just figure out what you need to do to build a business, but the cost of entry is zero. I think the most important thing is figure out what your business is and what it is, because as soon as you tell people this is your business, they'll start taking you seriously. If you just talk about it, yeah, I want to be a coach. I said that a lot. The second I quit my job and improved my website, my business doubled, literally doubled the next month. I started going to conferences, attending things. So as soon as you take yourself seriously, it's going to change the way that people look at you. Certifications. This is a tricky one for what we do, right? A couple of presentations today. I don't know what certifications they have. They have certifications. There's not one unifying certification. I think the most valuable thing at this point is education. Nothing is as valuable as a PhD. Dr. Campbell does not use his PhD enough. I do know some people that use it too much and they never shut up about it. But I feel like education is the card that trumps all. Oh, you're a level 1 certified, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. I have a master's degree in exercise science. I mean, to me, that's my perception, and maybe you guys can tell me I'm wrong. But I've purchased 3 certified personal training nutrition programs, and I literally read the first 10 pages and threw them away. So I have 0 certifications, because I don't believe in the certifications. When I start reading a certification program and I actually don't agree with it, unfortunately for me, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, I'm associated with people like him, Lane, Dr. Joe, so I know how it should really look. And there will be something coming along in the near future that will kind of trump all the certifications out there. But for you guys, for your business, for your brand, obviously look at whatever the highest one is. The one I actually like ISSN's. So the more I read about them, their testing seems to be the most current with like evidence-based approach
Yeah, I was
to
going to say, it's
nutrition and
very
training.
research-based.
Yeah. So when I started reading the ISSN stuff, that was actually my clue that I need to go back to school. Because the first thing started talking.
all by myself.